It seems to me that if anyone should have come under intense media scrutiny, it should have been Prince Philip for having his links with the Profumo affair, or it should have been the Queen, where one of her close relatives was a KGB agent. But that never happened. In all the research I've done about European monarchs, I've never been able to find a single monarch in recent times that's had a full-time job. When you analyse what they do, what takes up their time in terms of the royal diary is really patronising military organisations such as retired veteran organisations. The Chelsea Pensioners Club is a good example. And of course the military are there as Her Majesty's military services to protect the monarchy and to defend the realm. Military officers swear obedience to protect Queen and country or King and country. They don't swear allegiance to protect the British public. Now Diana was completely different. Diana took on her royal duties with a lot more care and a lot more compassion than any other royal person that I've researched throughout all the articles I've written and the films I've made that concern royal subjects. I have to say that Diana was the only royal person to really embrace, literally embrace, people who were suffering from leprosy, AIDS. She used to take her children to shelters where women who'd been battered by their husbands were given refuge. She used to take the young princes out onto the streets and show them what life was like for homeless people. On several foreign visits, Diana used to request that she could meet with children in hospitals suffering from illnesses, and children who'd suffered loss of limbs through landmines and this kind of thing. And on more than one occasion, Diana was seen crying and showing real empathy with those children. And this really brought her into the collective bosom of everyone on the planet. She was the world's most photographed woman. She was a member of what can only be described as the richest royal dynasty the world has ever known. And here she was, crying openly, meeting children in third world countries, and really showing a great deal of empathy. I've never ever come across any other royal person that did that. And this, I feel, reading between the lines, and not really being able to find a single newspaper cutting that shows any support for Diana from any other member of the royal family. This, I think, showed that Diana had real feelings for real people, and that this put her at odds with major senior members of the royal family such as Prince Philip and the Queen. She brought her children up in a atmosphere of complete family love, and I don't think it's overstating the case to say that many of the royal children throughout history have grown up in an atmosphere which has not been compassionate. It hasn't been a family-loving situation. And I suspect that all of this really alienated Diana from the senior royals. And by his own admission, when the relationship with Diana had broken down after the young princes had been born, through his own admission on a documentary which was made, Prince Charles then returned to his true love, and it is true that he's had a powerful, sexual, emotional, loving relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, regardless of the fact that she was actually married to Andrew Parker Bowles. What transpired, according to the book which was written by Andrew Morton, called Diana, Her True Story, is that all of this good work, all of this compassion, all of this loving empathy which Diana displayed, led her to be ostracized by the royal family. And it seems to me that the more that she cared, the more that she wore her heart on her sleeve, and the more that she showed that she had great respect for people like Mother Teresa, the more the royal family tried to ignore her. It's one thing being successful in the public eye, as she was with all of her charity work. It's quite another thing to be a failure in the eyes of the senior royals when you're at home with them. And I think that this dichotomy created an inattention with Diana and a dis-ease with the royal family. And dis-ease causes stress and tension, and dis-ease is actually disease. And according to the book by Andrew Morton, Diana used to suffer from bulimia. And bulimia is a very, very serious disorder, as is anorexia. And all credit to Diana, she actually publicly admitted that via the Andrew Morton book, and she fought through it, and she started on a regime of exercise. At the time when she was murdered, she was really very, very physically fit, and she used to visit the gym every day, and she worked her way through this disorder, and she worked her way through the ostracization that she suffered at the hands of the royal family. If we consider all of these pressures that were on Diana, we can see that she was somehow caught in a marriage which was a marriage without love between her and Charles. She was in a marriage where Charles's parents considered her as somebody that was maybe perhaps losing it mentally. And rumours were circulating that Diana was mentally unstable.
I'm supposed to be dragged off in a minute with men in white coats, so if it's all right with you, I thought I might postpone my nervous breakdown to a more appropriate moment.
And all I can say is that, those rumours probably exasperated her eating disabilities. And according to the confessional parts of Andrew Morton's book, not a single member of the royal family offered her any help whatsoever. She did have a close relationship with Barry Manicky, who was a personal protection officer. And I know that an American television company made a documentary claiming that Diana and Barry Manicky had had more than just a close friendship, that they actually had an affair. Shortly after this broadcast, which I believe was broadcast in America, Barry Manicky was killed in a car accident. She came to the point where she wanted to go through the process of writing this down, and her cathartic process led to the publication of an entire book, which was ghostwritten for Diana by Andrew Morton. And transcripts were smuggled out of Kensington Palace, and her butler, her loyal butler, Paul Burrell, actually writes in his book, which is called A Royal Duty, how there were these clandestine deliveries of transcripts of passages of the book, which was published under the title Diana, Her True Story, and these transcripts were smuggled out in a shopping basket on a bicycle. Now, the publication of that book, I feel that it must have been the last nail in the coffin for Diana. From that point onwards, I suspect that there was a war, an emotional, economic, marital war that was taking place behind closed doors at Kensington Palace and at Buckingham Palace and at Highgrove, which is the country residence of Prince Charles. Just a few months after the Andrew Morton book had been published, an audio tape recording surfaced in the tabloid press. And these tapes famously became known as the Diana Gate tapes, which is a reference to Watergate, which is the scandal uncovered by two reporters for the Washington Post that eventually brought down the Nixon administration in America. So they called these audio recordings of Diana's telephone conversations the Diana Gate tapes. Now, I've gone through the transcripts of these tapes very carefully that were published in the tabloid press at the time. And it seems that the conversation was between Diana and a gentleman called Mr. Ogilvy. Now, what's interesting is that when you read the actual substance of what was said, and then you read what the tabloid Fleet Street editors surmised from those conversations, the two things are completely different. The tabloid editors sensationalized the situation and made out that Diana was actually having some rampant love affair with Mr. Ogilvy. And as far as I'm aware, that was not clearly the case. Now, every member of the royal family actually has a secret code word. They have a code name. And, this is useful because obviously you don't want terrorists finding out that, say, for example, Prince Charles or the Queen is actually going to go and visit a certain place. So the code name for the Queen would be used in telephone conversations, and these code names are used as nicknames within the palaces. And this is confirmed by Paul Burrell, who actually worked for the senior royals before he ended up becoming the butler for Princess Diana. The Diana Gate tape does show that Mr. Mr. Gilby is his name. Sorry about that. It's not Ogilvy, it's Gilby. Mr. Gilby used a term, the word squidgy. Squidgy was a term which was used by him to refer to Diana in the tapes. Well, if you read the transcript, it seems to me that it's not, automatically, just because he's used the word squidgy, it doesn't automatically mean that Diana was being unfaithful. It doesn't automatically mean that there was some rampant love affair. They were close friends and they had nicknames for each other. But the Diana Gate tapes were deliberately circulated into the tabloid media to make Diana look as if she was unfaithful. And those tapes must have been recorded by the intelligence services or somebody who had bugged Princess Diana's apartments at Kensington Palace. And after these taped conversations appeared in the press, Diana would actually put on a disguise. She'd put on a headscarf and glasses, and she would actually go to the local high street in Kensington, and she would make phone calls using public telephone boxes, because she was certain that Her Majesty's intelligence services were actually bugging her phone, and the fact that these conversations, these private telephone conversations between Diana and Mr. Gilby came to light in the press proves that Diana was not paranoid. She was not hallucinating. She wasn't, a victim of wild speculation. It proves that people really were spying on Diana. The tapes were obviously recorded by a member of Her Majesty's Secret Services. They were the only people that would have had access to Princess Diana's private telephone line. And we can see from the glum expressions during the trip to Korea that the marriage had been destroyed. It had been destroyed by spies